Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to talk about conditioning and pairing, as well as Pizza Hut and McDonald's. So let's get into it. So we're going to start with what is conditioning, the basics of how conditioning works, what is pairing, why pairing, and how pairing. All very important questions. So let's dive in. Alright, so first, let's take this example. Say that you're looking for a pizza. The first example is you're going to go to Pizza Hut and ask for a large pepperoni pizza. You've done this plenty of times before. You have plenty of experience with Pizza Hut. I mean, they're called Pizza Hut. They ought to be good at this sort of thing. But for some reason, you ask for a large pizza and they tell you no. You're baffled, confused, bewildered, hurt. Obviously, you request again, or you change that request. Be like, well, I got a pizza last week. Is it the pepperoni you're out of? You start switching things up. So fine, I'll take a cheese pizza. I'll take a small pizza. You're going to continue to ask for pizzas because there's a long history of getting a pizza from Pizza Hut. Let's drop that example. I hope that you got the pizza, but whether you did or didn't doesn't make a difference on the example. Now, imagine you go to McDonald's and you request a pizza from them. You pull up at the drive-thru, you say, hey, can I get a large pepperoni pizza? They say no. And then you would respond, like any sane adult, like, oh, yeah, my bad. I'll just get a 10-piece with sweet and sour and barbecue sauce, maybe a Coke, large fry, all that good stuff. Moving on, you drop it. They tell you no pizza one time, and you're like, yeah, okay, and you move on. We'll come back to that later. So let's talk about conditioning first. So what is conditioning? Conditioning can be described as an association between events. This is very broad, but basically any sort of connection between two things. So in this case, where there's smoke, there's a fire. There's a connection between the two of those. If you smell smoke, you can assume that there's a fire around somewhere. Also, all those memes about I can hear this image, so they'll show something really iconic, like maybe one scene from a SpongeBob episode. And if you watch SpongeBob enough, or you see the picture, you can kind of hear it in your head, right? That there's a really strong connection between those two things. It can also be an association between an event and a behavior. So the classic example of this is Ivan Pavlov and his dogs, where he conditioned them so that when he rang the bell, they started drooling, right? So you have the event, the bell, and then the dog's behavior, drooling. It's connection, conditioning. Another example would be an ad for Cane's chicken fingers, and then you start drooling. So there's that connection between a thing and a behavior. Then the last sort of conditioning we will talk about is an association between an event, a behavior, and an outcome. So when I see snow on the ground, I put on my jacket, and then I feel warm. 3-step thing. You might remember antecedent behavior consequence. How about a cat hears the box of treats, they run over to the sound, and then they get a treat. So this is a type of learning. It's a type of conditioning. So how does conditioning work? There are lots of different kinds of conditioning. We're surrounded by conditioning. We are doing conditioning in the clinical setting. What's the mechanics? How does it work? Basically, organisms predict what comes next. Anything with a brain learns these sort of patterns, whether they're aware of it or they're unaware of it. They're realizing these patterns, and then they're behaving accordingly. So over time, a paired stimulus gains meaning through its pairing with something else. So the bell being presented before the food for Ivan Pavlov makes the bell have the same meaning as the food. Or let's take a clinical example with ET. Over time, people would grab the clipboard and they would write their time and everything on it, and then they would walk her outside to go home. So over time, that clipboard has gained the meaning of time to go home. Another example would be a pull-up, right? the first time a kid sees the pull-up, it doesn't mean anything to them. But over time, the pull-up gains meaning because of all the things that follow seeing the pull-up. Same for telling a kid good job. When we're first born, hearing the phrase good job is absolutely meaningless. We have to learn the meaning of that. And so over time, we all heard good job, and then something good happened that we liked, and so now it has meaning. And so you can very easily see how this sort of conditioning can make something a punisher or a reinforcer. So you have a light in your car that comes on, and you're like, oh, that's weird. I wonder what that means. And you keep driving. And then eventually your car breaks down. You now learned, hopefully you learned, that there's a connection between that random light in your car and your car breaking down. So the next time you go over a bump too fast and that light comes on, lesson learned, that light's now punishing you. You'll be like, oh, I'm not going to hit bumps too fast anymore. Hitting a bump too fast makes the light turn on, and the light turning on means my car is going to break soon. And then the reverse for something good happening, like praise. How you start working for praise because you figured out that when people start telling me good job, something good is going to come soon. So it works a lot about these pattern recognition. Like this, then that. This thing happens, and then this thing happens afterward. That's how conditioning works. That's how things gain meaning. Even I do this, and then that happens. Or, to go back to the 3-step, I see this, I do this, I get this. That's another form of conditioning, this learning that we're hoping to harness. So conditioning has 2 major parts to it. We've got contingency and salience. Contingency refers to how closely connected are these 2 things. So let's go back to the light in your car. Say that the light comes on, and 95% of the time, when you see that light, your car breaks down. You're going to learn very quickly what that light means, and you're going to have a very strong association between the light and your car breaking down. So now let's imagine the light comes on in your car, and 10% of the time, your car breaks down after the light comes on. You might have a hard time connecting that the light and the car breaking down are even associated at all, because it's only the case 10% of the time, and there's so many other things happening in the environment you might not even notice that the light is connected. So if you do learn that, you're going to learn it very slowly, and it's going to be a very weak connection between the light and the car breaking down. So the light isn't going to hold nearly as much meaning in this circumstance as if every single time the light comes on, your car's breaking down. And that sort of plays into the other component, which is salience. So how obvious is this thing? If I were to blink every time you said the letter E, you might not even notice that you had that effect on me, because blinking is so small that you'd have a hard time seeing it, especially with my glasses. You can't hardly see it at all. And so if we're trying to teach something, if we're trying to, or even learn a connection between 2 things, it has to be super obvious, clear as day, maybe someone even pointing to it for you so that you can make that connection. All right, so now let's shift and let's talk about pairing. So pairing is something we talk about a lot in the clinical setting. And normally we'll tell a technician, like, hey, be sure to pair yourself. Hey, pair this with that. So pairing is conditioning. They're synonyms. They mean the same thing. But normally when we use the word pairing, we're talking about conditioning yourself with good things in the session with the client. So we might also talk about pairing token with praise. And it's the same concept. But if we're talking about pairing yourself, we're talking about this, making yourself a good guy in the session. That's a phrase I use sometimes. And so ultimately what pairing is showing the learner what to expect from you in the future. So when I see you walk in the room, what's going to happen? Sort of like are you like the light in the car where when they walk in, oh no, everything's got to get ruined for me? Or are you closer to something like praise or a token where when I see you, oh, something good is coming. I know that something good's going to happen. So the stronger that pairing is the more effort they'll give for the outcome. So going back to the Pizza Hut example, where Pizza Hut is super strongly paired with pizza, right? I mean, it's in the name. You go to Pizza Hut, you're walking out with a pizza or some sort of pizza-related food. People are willing to put in so much more effort to get a pizza from Pizza Hut because of that association than they would to get a pizza from McDonald's. You might try every now and then, but you're not going to expect a pizza from McDonald's, and you're not going to put in nearly as much effort at McDonald's to get a pizza. And again, we'll come back to why this is relevant. So pairing yourself, why? Why take the time to do so? Well, first of all, pairing yourself with good things is a prerequisite to teaching. You're going to have a really hard time teaching a kid anything if they're spending the whole time just trying to get away from you. So you got to pair yourself with access to toys. You pair yourself with the learner communicating. You teach them that when they communicate in your presence, something good happens. You want to try to unpair yourself with attention for disruptions. So if the only time that the kid gets attention is whenever they're being disruptive, you have to break that connection with yourself and attention for disruptive behavior. Now you also need to unpair yourself with heightened emotional states. It's possible that a kid could learn, like when someone walks in the room, oh, I'm about to be really stressed out. And that's no fun for anybody, certainly not the kid. And so you have to take steps to break that pairing and pair yourself with calmness. Pair yourself with appropriate ways of communicating and getting attention so that when you walk in the room, that's where the kid is going to start jumping to do. Another reason that pairing is important is because you, as a technician, are a stand-in for teachers, parents, and adults in general. So whenever you're pairing yourself with good things, you're not just pairing your face in particular, but you're pairing all adults in general. You're teaching without talking to the kid that adults are a source of good things. They're a source of praise. They're a source of comfort. They're a source of information, a source of food, toys, play. And so whenever you make yourself a good thing in the environment, you're also making adults in general, other people in general, a good thing. And so the child is more likely to seek them out even when you aren't around. And then lastly, it makes your job easier. If you've already paired yourself with reinforcement, you are the reinforcement, time with you is a reinforcement, then you could walk in the room and ask him to dance on the ceiling and the kid would figure out a way to get up there because you have paired yourself so heavily with good things. So how do you pair yourself? How do you go about doing this? Because I would like to see a kid dance on the ceiling if it's at all possible. It would be pretty cool. So I think one of the first things is to realize that you are always making connection between yourself and something. So looking at it through that lens and asking, just what are you associating yourself with? Because that learning, that association is always being made. So when the learner sees you and they think to themselves, whether with words or without words, maybe like their body has this expectation, these thoughts. When I see her, I know I will blank. So are they expecting to be blocked? Are they expecting for you to constantly get in their way and tell them, don't do that, don't do that? Are they expecting to have fun? Are they expecting to be recognized? Are they expecting to be ignored? What does your history with the learner look like? Your history of interactions. And it's important to have this zoomed out perspective of historically, when I interact with this kid, I do so in this manner. And looking at that critically and analytically and determining if the way that you historically interact with a kid is beneficial to learning in the short term and in the long term for them. So how do you go about pairing yourself? Firstly, pairing is active. It's an activity that you engage in. So it requires intention to specifically pair yourself. It's more than just being around the child, being in their environment. It's a deliberate act that you undertake in order to make yourself a reinforcer for them. And then it also requires attention. So you need to be giving attention. You need to be showing interest in what the kid is doing and also following their lead so that you know what works and what doesn't work. Being very attentive to the kid and seeing how are they responding to you. And sort of having a dynamic back and forth while you are pairing. A great way of pairing yourself is to give freebies. So free toys, free snacks, free praise. And in this way, it matters a whole lot less about the size of those things and a whole lot more about the frequency and the consistency. So if I walk in a room and one time I give them one super cool toy, like it's a massive toy, it's an entire fun jump. I bought them a fun jump and I give it to them. That's going to hold some meaning for them. They're going to think that's really, really cool. It's going to hold a lot less meaning, though, than if every single day I drop in and I give them one tiny little fidget. Like just like a tiny little dice or a board game piece or just something really small. But I'm consistent with it so that when they see me, they know something good is going to come. That carries so much more meaning. Same with praise. It's not enough to occasionally throw a ton of praise at them. It requires that consistent praise and that they're going to get more praise, more snacks, more toys, more fun things when you are around than when you aren't around. And that every time they see you, something good is coming. And then also communicating through your actions, right? So a lot of our kids don't talk, or they have very limited speech skills, or even if they can talk, those complex listener skills are missing. So like if they were to listen to this conversation right here, they'd probably be pretty lost. If they were to listen to a lot of conversation, they'd probably be pretty lost because we talk really quickly and there's a lot of other skills that go into listening. And so if you were to tell a client, like, hey, you're valued, you're important, I want to pay attention to you, and I want you to follow these rules, and when you follow these rules, I'm going to make it worth your while. That's a lot for a kid, any kid, to listen to, especially one of our clients. And so you can't rely on just telling them that. You have to show them. You communicate through your actions that you are paying attention to them, and that whenever they do something cool, you're going to reinforce it, and that you're on their team. You're not just there to be a roadblock, but like to get in the way of the kid, block them from doing something, and say, oh, nope, you got to use your words, but that you're just as often there to facilitate their fun. And then that plays into the next slide. So back to pizza. Let's say that we're teaching a kid to request something, anything, and that they've never requested independently, or they almost never do so all on their own. They're always requiring some kind of prompt to ask for anything. There could be a lot of reasons why they always need these prompts, right? There could be a lot of reasons why they're struggling with requestings. But maybe you're McDonald's and he's looking for a pizza. So the thing that the kid is looking for, he doesn't often get from you at all. He might not even know that you serve pizza, right? You might be McDonald's right now. And so, of course, the requesting is going to be really low, right? Even, of course, all of those appropriate behaviors are going to be really low because they don't even know how good of a thing you are or how good of a time they could have with you. You're just kind of there in the environment. So it could be you're acting kind of like McDonald's right now. The learner expects low praise from you. They expect minimal toys from you. They expect minimal fun from you. And, you might have tried to tell them before, like, hey, I'll give you the toy if you do blank. I'll give you all the toys if you do blank. But that's not nearly the same as showing with your actions that good things come from you frequently, reliably, consistently. So we got to flip that. If you're Pizza Hut and they come and they ask for a pizza, you say no, they're shocked and they're going to switch it up. They're going to try everything to get that pizza because you're Pizza Hut. What's going on here? Give me the fun thing. So say that you withhold a toy from a kid. You're McDonald's, they'll be like, oh yeah, she always withholds toys from me. I'm just going to go find another toy to play with. But if you're Pizza Hut, the one time you hold on to the toy or you pretend to be looking at it or something, they're like, hey, wait, this is weird. She always gives me toys. And so the kid's they're gonna try to figure it out. They're gonna ask for it. They're gonna be like, hey, what do I need to do to get that toy? Or maybe the same with praise, where if you're never providing praise, attention, something like that to a kid, then the one time you say, hey, I can't play with you right now, we need to do this work first, they'll be like, oh, well, yeah, that tracks. I never get to play with you. I never get attention. You're boring anyway. But if you're consistently providing those things, even for free, not even for work, just even for free, they're expecting high play, high attention, high toys, high everything from you. Then the one time that barrier, that demand, that disruption gets in the way, they're going to do everything to overcome it. And sometimes the barrier isn't even from you. That disruption could be, maybe they just had a really rough night, right? But they're expecting and willing to put in the effort for all of that fun from you in particular. So that's what they're going to do. And that was my last slide. I hope everyone is as hungry and ready for pizza as I am. And I will be happy to answer any questions if you find some way to get them to me. Thanks.